If this is your first interview with Growth Podcast, thanks for listening in. If you already saw a few interviews, then you know what kind of flow to expect.
$2 billion in waste between the buyers of B2B lead gen and sellers, and I'm trying to find my living in that waste. Another man's trash is another man's garbage, right?
But you don't see me talk a lot, right?
You're always a little bit accountable.
Obviously, everyone is accountable in the organization if you work there, 100%, right? My guest today is Amir Reiter. He's a colleague of mine. We work in the same industry, we service similar clients, and we have or had a very similar career path. Just generally thinking about just marketing, business, sales, whatever, nothing is working, right? You always can do better, right?
I think people have this idea that it's optional to work with a B2B lead gen company, or optional to have reps, or optional to generate revenue. It's not. It's the breadth of your whole company. So a corporate job with the right company is easy peasy, low stress, high income. Being a business owner is a war every day. If you want to be a business owner, just get prepared to get the shit kicked out of you every moment of every day of every life.
For me, my first 5 years is like a blackout. I don't remember about it.
That's called sacrifice. You sacrifice the personal life to have a better future. I'm like, the most successful people in the world are the ones that say no the most, right? No. Don't agree. Did they ever teach you that anywhere?
No, but I don't say no. What I say, I think we can do it better.
You're always the bad guy as a CEO, right? So it's better to be a bad guy and have money in the bank than be a bad guy with no money in the bank.
So here's my conversation with Amir Reiter. Thank you and enjoy the episode. I have a bunch of interesting questions for us to ponder on, and then just curious to hear your thoughts. I'm curious, why is your mission to transform sales, and why do sales need transforming? I read that on your website.
No, it's a great question. So I found myself... So CloudTask as a sales agency company could have been probably at like 15, 20 million. When we were at 5 million in revenue back in 2019, right before COVID, I got to the point where we were doing 5 million in revenue. The company was profitable. And then I was taking on consulting work, on the side because I wanted to make more money, but I didn't want to make more money with more customers because I felt like a company hiring a sales agency for 8 months was a success story, right? And I felt like a lot of the low bar of success had to do with the way that buyers bought and the way sellers sold. And, it was a combination of obviously having bigger financial, like how do you take a bigger financial dream and align it into solving real problems that really affected me? And I remember like going to Barcelona for a vacation and like 50K of MRR was at risk and I'd have to fly back and I was all stressed out. And even though I was making good money and probably the year that I ripped CloudTask apart to transform sales, at that point, most people wouldn't have changed their businesses because I was getting closer to that 7-figure net profit mark, which is an amazing life in America, let alone living in Colombia, right? That's like 3 times. And I kind of saw that status quo could be changed by transforming sales and transforming it with transparency, with being able to say no, with being able to say the truth, with being able to tell a buyer and be like, no, you're not going to get 15 meetings in month 1. You want me to say that so I can get you the deal that you'll cancel 8 months and you're not going to be mad because that's going to be okay. So I just felt like there was a lot of waste, a lot of inefficiency. I felt like it affected the stress level of a sales agency owner. It affected the careers of the buyers. It affected the careers of the SDRs that are working for the agency itself. And I just thought it could be better with just transparency and just and being clearer and being just being more, everybody just finding their best fit client versus saying yes to everybody, right? Like if your success story is an HR company that sells $25,000 software in the States, well, there's like 500 companies that sell to that. These companies that should be your buyer, but it's not because everyone's just saying yes. So, I just thought there could be more efficiencies, and I thought that the buyer and the seller and the employees could win in an environment where things are just more clear and information was more clear, right? That was how I felt, right? And I also felt like a lot of companies that were winning really well were doing it based off like really good marketing material that they had. Like, they'd have a nice website, they'd have an awesome team, they'd have an awesome deck. But that team and that deck was not, once you went from a buyer to a client, the execution wasn't really connected to that pretty website. And I felt like that could change, so it's like people were winning by being the peacock, right? Like how like nature works, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't translate into good service. And and I thought that this direction could help buyers and sellers, even help agencies like yourself, right? I think Belkins does X amount of revenue. I'm not going to say it aloud. You mentioned to me, and I'm very proud of you. But like, if you look at your 80-20 rule, you probably can triple on that 20%. That brings your 80% revenue. But as a CEO, it's hard to say no to clients unless you have more clients coming in, right?
Right.
So like that's kind of where I saw myself helping, where I could help an agency owner say no, because I could be like, yo, Mike, say no because I got 10 more customers for you.
Yeah.
Not say no just because, you know what I mean? Because it's not easy, because you have promises to deliver to your investors, if you have any, to your employees. So it puts you in a hard position to say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And you cannot say no at scale, right? Let's say if you have 20 clients, you can say no to 2 clients or 3 clients, whatever. If you have 40, whatever. But then when you have 100 ongoing clients or 200, 300, you cannot say no to 30 clients, because then you need to bring 40 clients back. And that's like at the high level, there's just hundreds, thousands of dollars in acquisition, into retention, and sometimes you just don't want to gamble and just kind of want to go with the flow. So that's why it's tough business to be in when you reach certain threshold, right? Like when you get a certain level, like having a few $1 million boutique shop when you can, make up 25, 30% margins and, getting paid yourself a few $100,000 a year as a founder, you can live off that for years, right? But as you pointed out, you wanted an ambition.
Well, I personally wanted to build a unicorn company, right, that had this valuation, but I also wanted to do it in a way where I took the pain that I went through, like as an agency owner, and I helped other agency owners, like understanding where they were, right? And that was, that's really the crux of it. And it's just a different place, right? Like if you look at like, where does the valuation come from? In my opinion, it doesn't come from taking business from agencies, right? Because some agencies are like not used to marketplace and they're like, oh, you keep a fee. It comes from the inefficiency, right? Like I don't have a magic calculator, but I bet you there's like $2 billion in waste between the buyers of B2B lead gen and sellers based on not being able to say the accurate things to each other, right? And I'm trying to find my living in that waste, if that makes sense. It's like another man's trash is another man's garbage, right?
Yeah. What are some misconceptions or common myths about sales, marketing, or business that you can debunk for me right now?
That they're optional. They're not optional. I think people have this idea that it's optional to work with a B2B lead gen company, or optional to have reps, or optional to generate revenue. It's not. It's the breadth of your whole company. So people, in a way, I think it's a common myth that you can live without it, right? Nobody who hires outside lead gen companies has it figured out, right? So like, I think that you could debunk anybody who's trying to act like they got the messaging right or they got it figured out, because as soon as they are hiring an outsourced agency, it's because they tried it in-house. They don't have it figured out. So I think, I hope I didn't blend the answer, but like, it's not optional is a myth, and that, you don't need help is a myth. You need help. And I think people need to be more honest to be like, I need help. I tried this, it's broken. They don't buy like that. They buy like, we're the best company. We got the best offer. We don't even know what it is. Why should we pick you? And they don't buy like, hey man, I need a really teammate. I need help. Here's my problem. Would you agree with those statements?
Yeah. All things are not working. I'll give you an example. I have a really great, hardworking PPC guy. Like he's like super cool. He's been with the company for 3 years. We have good conversions. But we brought on a few other PPC guys, and they're also great. And they collaborating cut down the cost at 20%. And I'm like, why the hell I didn't bring on another outside PPC specialist 2 years ago? I would get my costs down way lower. Why I didn't do that? Because I was under the impression that I'm doing everything that I can. I do the best in this and there's nothing I can improve. And I was mistaken. So I think that just generally thinking about just marketing, business, sales, whatever, nothing is working, right? You always can do better, right? You can get your conversions.
Well, how many times has there been the fastest car in the world?
Yeah.
70 times?
It's growing every year. Yeah.
Right? So it's the same concept, right? Like if innovation happens everywhere, for you as a business owner to think that your metrics are okay. It's a lie that people tell themselves if their company's in the growth phase, right? If you're a lifestyle company and if you're earning what you want and that's all you want, then maybe that's okay. And then maybe you're in a defensive preservation mode. But anybody who says the sky's the limit, I'm going to go for the biggest, baddest company ever, should put themselves in a situation to say that good was good yesterday and what is good today will be bad tomorrow. And that's normal. And that's how it works in the world, right? You know?
Yeah. I mean,
back to that. Yeah.
You mentioned 8 months, like 8 months is a lot. I mean, like our company transformed within 6 months, like totally, right? A lot of things changed. So even using what we've used 6 months ago is not good. So I'm looking at it and said, yeah, we can change that. We can update that. It's not how we talk about this anymore. And it's been just 6 months. Tell me this. I've talked to some people and they often mention your ability to drive revenue growth. Do you agree that not all executives have that kind of mindset about driving revenue? And then question is what specifically do I need to have, or what I need to do to approach growth from the revenue generation, revenue driven when I build my business?
Well, it's an interesting question. So I would agree that, not every lion's a lion, not every zebra is a zebra, right? And I think self-identifying who you are and what your strengths are very important. I was a salesperson who went door to door when he was 20 years old, cold called, and I became an expert at that. So if you fast forward to being a leader, it would make sense that I would lead in business development for my own company. I would lead in growth. When you say about most leaders, it's so dynamic because a leader to a Fortune 500 company is a completely different person for a leader to a startup, right? Maybe if we wanted to zoom in on like the sales tech world, which is a world that we both live in and we understand and we dabble with, whether reselling or building, I would say that what you're finding now is that I would think that a majority of startups that are in the sales software space that are led by CEOs, they're typically actually CTOs that gave themselves the title of CEO, and their companies are growing, but they probably would grow better if they, found somebody who led with growth and strength. And it's really, it's two different beasts, right? I think new companies have an opportunity of being very lean and small and being like 5 people companies doing 10, 20 million in revenue. But that might be different for a bigger company, which like their job might be to lower cost and increase profit. So it's hard to answer that question just because every company is different in every industry. But yeah, I would say that I've been fortunate enough to be a sales-led CEO, and that led to a lot of our success to where we got to. But then what was missing? The planning, the structuring, right? The calculator, right? So like there's always something that has to give. And I think you need to identify it as a CEO and just, if you're a CEO that's more product-led and you want to drive some high revenue, you might want to bring someone with a different personality. And I don't know if I answered your question fully. So if I didn't, hold me to it and re-ask that question.
Interesting thing about being revenue driven is whatever situation is, like you're in the pandemic, you're in the crisis, whatever, you can make revenue for the organization.
I was on Connect and Sell during COVID. I bought Connect and Sell and I was cold calling every day because I didn't want to fire anybody, which wasn't the right decision because, I've obviously learned quickly that people don't care about you and your situation. You're always the bad guy as the CEO, right? So it's better to be a bad guy and have money in the bank than be a bad guy with no money in the bank. If I could go back in time, I probably would not have been so righteous in that well. But yeah, that's what I did during COVID is I did get on the phones and drove revenue with Connect and Sell cold calling.
Yeah. So I've seen folks that are either product driven or just kind of client relationship driven. They're like just when the crisis happens, the first thing they do, they stop the acquisition. They stop investing into, marketing, and they just kind of say, okay, let's work with the clients, like build our relationship, let's build the processes. But what I've seen even in the last 12 months, companies like that, they just kind of dripping down blood by blood with just client by client, because you never know, right? We have some clients that say, hey, we're closing up the shop. Hey, we're out of money. Hey, we cannot raise the capital, right? Like, hey, we're just changing and focusing on that. And you cannot have this on your customer success team and say, why didn't you save that account, right? Because there's nothing they can do about it and there's nothing about your value proposition. But being able to quickly drive new revenue and then being, knowing how to do that organically. So it's not about learning it like, hey, now I need new revenue. What can we do about it? But already having everything in place, like already having whatever network, whatever, having all the campaigns, all the messaging, all the things, all the channels, try that and just kind of increasing into that. Again, when COVID happened, then again, you probably remember, but the first, 3-4 months when there was no investment in marketing. No one was like, right? So, and then if it's not, then it means that they stopped all the budgets. But we also didn't fire anyone because we realized that there are some industries that still investing. There are some verticals that we can work with. So let's just hit the phone, right? Let's hit the email and then find those clients. And we were able to find this X amount of clients that eventually help us to balance out the P&L in the favor where we're not laying off people and then going stronger. So actually we grew probably 1.8 times during the first year of the COVID, just because as a result of that heavier push.
Yeah, you were ready with all channels, right? But it's a complicated thing, right? Because making money could have the same result as saving money on your bank account, right? If you save $1 million or you make $1 million net profit, it's a number in your bank account. And, you're probably going to see a tendency where a leader of a sales agency like yourself or like me will push the gas on sales during times because that's our strength. And that's what we did. Right.
Right.
I don't want to say things too publicly because I don't know what you share, but I also know that you're building awesome tools that save money in the back end for sales agencies. So can I talk about that? Can I tell the people about the tools you're making?
You can talk whatever.
You're what I observed, and I just met, like I observed that you pushed heavy on the gas, but you also pushed heavy on the, how a private equity works. Private equity works by acquiring companies, putting together the profit sheets and being like, well, if we save X amount of money because we have a bigger pie and here's the profit, right? So I've observed that you're doing both of those things, which is awesome, but that's because you're dynamic, right? And a lot of people aren't, they get stuck in their ways, right? So I think it's a combination of like knowing who you are, knowing what your strength is, knowing what levers you can pull, because you can literally, you could push revenue growth and cost savings at the same time. But if you push just one, something's going to be unbalanced. I think I think people forget that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're not saving anything. I mean, me and Vlad, we are saving any dollar. Again, I can do that because I don't have a mortgage on me. I don't have.
Oh, you're 29 and you're on full growth mode.
Right. I have nothing that I can spend money on. If I'm stopping my earning income this month, I just need to pay the rent and whatever. That's it. So I don't have any, kids in school, etc. So that's why like saving anything and sort of like reinvesting them in like stock or real estate. Like why if I can build this tag, right?
Well, you are building real estate, digital real estate.
Right. You're building assets.
You're building assets. You're building the future assets. So like I don't. No, I'm like, and it's back to, the reason why I pivoted, I'm 40 years old. I think I'm 11 years older than you. I was like 37. I was like, I don't have any kids. I don't have a wife. Now's the time to take a big chance. Right. Yeah. And invest in myself. The thing is like why I love transparency in the market is I also love networking and I love meeting people that are like-minded, right? Like you live in a completely different part of the world. Right. But I have more in common with you than somebody next door to me or around the street with me, right? Really? So I think one of the things that I also like is I love networking. I love helping people. So I was like, how can I transact? Well, I built a marketplace where I can bring you buyers. You know what I mean? You can set up. So it's like, I've kind of also in a way trying to build a lifestyle company that has a hyper growth in mind, if that makes sense. But I think people forget that there's so many paths to victory. And it makes it complicated for people. I think people are overwhelmed with the amount of information. So it's almost easier for people to be like, the government's holding me back or like to blame something, right? Because it's so easy now in a way. There's just so much information and so much availability for people to earn that people really don't have an excuse.
For example, I met the guy, I'm on Burning Man this year. I went and I met Max Hodek, who's the CEO, who was founder of Neuralink. So Musk bought shares from him and then bought out his share. Mm-hmm. So when we talk with him, and obviously when you're building a Neuralink, your R&D budget is way through the roof. Like you need millions of dollars and then you need to have that capital concentrated with like people. So his point was that Silicon Valley is still that center where a lot of ambitious people came in.
But what's the difference between moving there and being there for 1 month of the year? That's my point.
Right.
So like, I will not debunk the fact that you need to be around the right people. I'm just saying that you can fly there and be like, where did you fly to Birmingham from?
From LA, right? So you can spend a month or 2 months in LA, and yeah, that's true. Actually,
you could spend the time where you need to be to accomplish your goals, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So goals are not connected to a lifestyle anymore. So your lifestyle can be so different, right? You can kind of whatever travel, live in the UK, but then spend 3-4 months in Silicon Valley, do whatever you need to do, and then move on.
I think two things are happening since COVID. I think we're having I think a globalization from a product and like reliability. Globalization is pulling apart, right? Like we're buying more from like Mexico and India than China. We're trying to get off, Europeans trying to get off Russian oil. But I think from a mind share perspective, we're becoming more global and interconnected. And that kind of rolls into that book from I can't pronounce his name, and I don't want to. It's called The Network State. From have you ever read that book, The Network State?
Mm-mm.
We're talking about how if you look at like how many countries there are in the world and like the per capita of some of these countries, he was making a statement that like you could have a WhatsApp group or a community of 100 CEOs that have the buying power of $300 million that can go buy land and build their own community network, right? I feel like the world is like, while the world is like, getting more totalitarian in a way and like trying to control the masses, I feel like people that broke free are able to build their own kind of community in their own world where you can go to Burning Man and you can talk to the CEO of Neuralink and you'd be like, this is my kind of people, right? But like, it's a community that brought you there. It's a Burning Man community, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's coordinating all those events online.
People
you don't just show up in the desert and it's a magical city. It's being coordinated in the network, right? And then executed. So yeah, I feel like you don't have to move to these places. I feel like you can just travel. I'm like, I made more friends in San Francisco over the last 6 years than the average person in San Francisco by just visiting. I went to what I would do? I'd pull emails, right? And go, hey, I'm going to be in Dreamforce this week. Let's get coffee. And I'd go for 4 weeks and I'd literally be able to meet 200 people. Well, who's networked more in San Francisco? Me meeting 200 people in 1 month, or you living in San Francisco, paying $5,000 for a 1-bedroom and meeting 100 people over 3 years? Yeah, I feel like the chessboard has changed, and it's now like it's 3-dimensional, right? You got like a lot more access and where you could physically be, what networks you're in, right? So it's kind of interesting, Yeah, I'm in your Slack community.
Yeah,
right. And I got some crap from your community manager because someone came at me and said, hey, how, you know what I mean? So like, these are people I never met, I never talked to, and never, you know what I mean? And instantaneously they have access to me and they're debating, we're talking about, we're making whatever we're talking about, and it's a network, but you built that network and I just went into it.
Yeah. Huh. To give people context, you are in Medellin right now.
I am in Medellin, Colombia, the best place in the world.
Okay. When did you move, and what can you say? What did you move at?
2016. I just think it's more of a traditional culture where, I'm not necessarily like looked at weird for like wanting to be a husband and take care of my kids and be a traditional man, that like type of thing. So I personally love here that traditional culture and that like, they're not really fighting about things that they're fighting about in the States. Like racism doesn't exist here. I feel like in America, like, they make everything about this and everything about that to like divide you, if that makes sense. So I just felt super comfortable in Colombia where like they're just not talking about these things. You know what I mean? And the weather's amazing, and the currency conversion basically will increase your net worth by 75%. And that's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
So like I was able to have a very high lifestyle here. And invest in my future, right? Because people forget to say, like, if you're making $250,000 in San Francisco, but you spend $250,000, it will explain to me how you're building assets. You're not, right? So if I'm making $250,000 in Colombia, now my cost of living is $50K instead of I got $150K to buy stocks, to buy QQQ, to ask you about your next seed round or one of your awesome companies. So it's like people, there's the chess table has changed, right? And you could pull different levers now. So I'm here because I wanted to lower my cost of living, go back to the 1960s with traditional culture, right? And I found it, and I can do it, right? So I don't have to change America. I could just go a place where I feel a little bit more comfortable.
Nice. And you can visit United States when you want for.
Go right now. See my parents in 3 hours if I want to.
Yeah. You mentioned networking and building connections. Now thinking about it, you're one of the people that in my network that have this interesting vibe about it, always kind of generating network and building connections and just going and being available. And like you have so many things going on for you. Even when you look through the LinkedIn page, you have all of the people that you know, that you talk to, that you promote, that you engage with, build something and go, go, go. All the executives or the sales-driven executives have that notion, but not at the level where you have it.
You know, I identified that I'm an extrovert. I'm an extreme extrovert, right? So like, I get pleasure out of, like, I don't feel jealousy. This is a personal thing. And I struggled with this because I didn't understand that other people do feel jealousy. So like, whenever I saw someone who was successful, I was like, what did you do and how can I do it, right? I was never like, oh my God, I hate this guy. So I just never felt those feelings, right? I never felt jealousy. I've always was a guy who, like, in high school, I was always at my friend's place, like hanging out, like always in a group of 10 people, right? And then I just kind of identified the fact that, like, you know, like I got pleasure out of it because I thought I wanted to become a doctor because I was like, all right, I have to make money and I can make money helping people with their health. And then I woke up and I was like, well, shit, I can make money helping people, not by being a doctor, but by networking with them, right? And I was trying super hard to network when I had Cloudtask as a sales agency, but it was hard because all I had was my agency, right? So it wasn't a good platform to network, right? Mm-hmm. But I made really good connections while I was an agency, and people tried helping me and I tried helping them. Committing to a marketplace gave me a platform to now have a purpose to help everybody, right? It's more like their listing is in my marketplace and you transact through it. Like I can earn with these guys. So like now it put me in a situation where not only do I learn what you're doing and understand what you're doing and I support you, but I can actually help buyers find what you're doing by making it super clear to find. And so I built that platform, and that's why you see me so active. It's because I respect people who build stuff, right? Like I got a lot of love and respect for people who work hard, right? I got a lot of respect for people that try to help people with revenue. I got respect for people that build tools to do it faster, cheaper, more efficient. So it gives me a platform to share my respect to people and to earn with them.
Can you share with me any specific example of a sort of like professional relationship that you've built that had a significant impact on your career, or, you know, where you're at right now? And then what lesson did you learn drawing from it or something like that?
I'll give you one. So when I was working at NetSuite, I was an account executive. I only had 120 accounts that I can legally in my territory sell a $500,000 software to. So basically I was set up to fail. I had a $1.8 million quota, right? And if partners got sales, I got no credit, but it was an awesome job. I got paid heavy to do nothing. I reached out to this guy named Eric Agamon. He was the CEO of a company called Answers on Demand. And I happen to know he's Israeli because of his last name. My parents are Israeli too. So I kind of like messaged him and I was like, hey man, I see you're like an Israeli American entrepreneur. You had an exit. Like I'd love, I know you're not going to buy NetSuite, but I'd love to learn from you. And, ironically, you know, he was at the time went through like a divorce. So like he looked at me as like this 30-year-old South Beach guy who had, had the social life figured out, which I very much did. And I looked at him like someone who I wanted to be, you know, in his shoes. He sold his company for $100 million plus. And ironically, that relationship, he asked me to come to Colombia just to visit. And at the time, I had no interest in partying, no interest in doing it. Cause I was living in South Beach in a hotel, and I had a good life already. But I went there with him because I wanted to just continue to build my relationship with him. And that relationship is the reason why I'm here. And ironically, if you look at how that influenced my life, I moved to Colombia 6 months later, right? And it's pretty much because of Eric, right? And then because he influenced me, I am now helping thousands of Colombians get jobs and changes in their lives. So it just goes to show you the chain reactions that can happen from networking. But that was probably one of the most influential, life-changing experiences or networking things, because it literally is the reason why I'm in Colombia, you know? And that was literally just from an email.
You mentioned NetSuite. For someone that obviously NetSuite is a global corporation, or was. I don't. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I don't.
They were bought by Oracle, but Let me get this. So like Larry Ellison owned 49% regardless.
Okay.
It was one of those.
So for someone who worked in a global corporation and then now founded your own company, how these two experiences are different in terms of challenges and rewards, and then just for context, what advice would you offer for others considering the similar career path?
So a corporate job with the right company is easy peasy, low stress, high income. Being a business owner is a war every day. You know, if you want to just focus on your family and that's your most important thing, and you don't ever really care about, the accolades of building a unicorn, I would say have a corporate job with a high paying company, because it's they'll tell you it's low stress. They'll be like, it's stressful, but it's not. I got paid like $180K a year, and I worked like a day a week, maybe. And the more I did, the more trouble I would get. So like I actually had to do less. And I would tell people that, like, if you want to be a business owner, just get prepared to get the shit kicked out of you every moment of every day of every life, because why would it be easy, right? Like building $1 billion company or building why the hell would that be easy? It could take your life, right? It could mess up relationships, right? Like I had relationships where like I was in startup mode, and I had women in my life that like were like a perfect match for me, but because I was a business owner, like I pushed them away. I couldn't do both, right? So like I would say, yeah, if you're prepared to take major sacrifices with no guarantee that you'll succeed, go the route of being a business owner. If you want to have a comfortable life and you're okay with, being successful in your sphere of people with jobs, then get a corporate job, but they're just not the same thing, right?
Yeah. Did you have a conversation with your ex that you're not giving me enough of your time, we're not hanging out enough, et cetera, et cetera?
I gave the whole, I need 2 more years to make money, and she was peace out, got married right away. I deserved it though. It's also like people have to be prepared for that. Like my best advice to somebody when it comes to relationships is, if you want to be a business owner, don't get into a relationship until you hit a certain level of success where you feel comfortable to have a family, because it'll destroy you and destroy your partner. It happens to a lot of people. People don't talk about it. A lot of people aren't comfortable talking about it, but it happens all the time to people.
For me, my first 5 years is like a blackout. I don't remember about it. I just know that I worked very hard. But if you ask me some specifics, I can kind of give you as if like all the days of the weeks just blended in. And then I know distinctively about the business though. You can tell me how much money you made in 2017, 2018, what was the team. I know all the specifics of what's the company by detailed historically. But if you ask me my personal life, what did you do in 2017? I'm like, I don't know.
That's called sacrifice. You sacrifice the personal life to have a better future. A lot of people aren't willing to do that, right? And if you're not willing to sacrifice your personal life, and you're not willing to become obsessed with your business, and by the way, you can sacrifice your personal life and you can become obsessed with your business, and it still doesn't guarantee success. But I'll tell you what, without doing those two, you have 0 chance of hitting success. So like if I start interviewing you and I peel back your attitude and I know what you did the last 5 years. You became a machine. You became a machine that was all about your business, right? What are the results? You're a 29-year-old that is probably in the 1% of the world, right? And probably from income and potential and educational standpoint and just knowledge, right? Like your knowledge is probably worth more than the capital you have, right? So like you've sacrificed to get something, right? And had you not done that sacrifice, we might not be here, right? So it's a tough. People need to understand that you design your own life, right? And people need to know that don't ask the questions about, like, when you talk to people who are mentors, don't ask them about their cool cars or their cool trips. Ask them about their biggest mistakes, what they lost, right? What they like that's what you learn from the most, because people think that people wait at the finish line and look at people and go, that's how it looks. But they don't understand the truth, right? I used to have a very good friend, not as close to anymore. His name was Chris Tomic. He was the first tech billionaire. He lives in Marbella. And I do it for 9 years, and I never asked him anything about like his income or his job. I just knew he was a super smart guy, right? Like you could Wikipedia him and found him. And then later on, I found out that his first company, when he was 21 years old, went public on the public stock exchange. It had an $800 million valuation. And because of how the lawyers did it, he lost everything. So he went from being a billionaire to losing everything to then building it back up from scratch. But if you just look at him in the moment, you'll see Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and you see who he is, but you don't see how he stood back up when he got knocked on the floor, right? And that's kind of what people should talk about more. I think is like the hard work, the pain, the suffering, the sacrifice, because that should be celebrated more than the success. If you want to make sense,
Mm-hmm. I've one of my guests for this season was Jim Cathcart. He wrote a lot of books, like 40 best-selling books. He's one of the best business coaches, like number one, whatever. I think he's 85 right now. And I asked him a question about the sacrifice. What sacrifice did he make to get to where he is? And he said that he's been with his wife for like 50 years. He has like 3 kids, 3 daughters, 2 granddaughters. He's in very good shape. He's like one of the best. He said that he showed up for every dinner, for every like weekend. He spent the time. And he's like, what did you sacrifice? And he said that he didn't sacrifice anything besides his comfort and the discipline. So he said that he was a machine, but the machine in terms of structuring everything in a way that he could be in time. So he obviously didn't spend time watching Netflix and didn't spend time hanging out with friends.
But he became comfortable being a machine, right?
Right. Yes.
That's what most people are like. Most people, they can't. If you are not comfortable becoming that machine, it'll just tear you apart. If you take pride in becoming that machine, like if you hold a pride, like I don't blink, I don't, you know what I mean? I focus. And that aligns with your pride, then become that machine, right? Because that's part of the success. Could you imagine that same person hated becoming a machine, hated the feeling it wouldn't have worked?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he became something that most people can't handle being. And they don't teach this to you in school. There's no taught about it. There's no taught about entrepreneurship, taxes, money, finance, what you might want to sacrifice if you're going down this road, what you might gain, what you might have to become, right? I'm like, the most successful people in the world are the ones that say no the most, right? So they don't teach you that. They're not saying, well, if you're not agreeable, you might earn more money. Well, it's a fact, but they don't teach you that, right? So it's like, you got 2 different things. You got like mainstream trying to make you agree with everything. You want to get, I can't even say the words on this podcast, but like they want to get you to listen to them. It's a different message from the world of like how people are making it. It's people would say no. Don't agree. No, and don't agree. That was making more money. But did they ever teach you that anywhere?
No, but I don't say no. What I say, I think we can do it better. I think there's way we can actually find a better solution to this.
You're 29.
So, right.
You're going to say no, the more success you get. I would put my money on that. And then you're going to go back in time when you're 39 and tell the young 29 Mike to say no.
Well, that's true. Like I'm in this perspective. Yeah, I'm telling no because I don't, honestly, if I see that from the glance that it's not a good opportunity for me, I'm not even spending time on that. Like,
have you started to earn more money the more no's you've said in your professional career?
I think so, yes. Because you say no to a lot of people that you don't want to work with, right? Say, hey, you're not a good fit for us, right?
Yes.
We can a good fit for you, right?
Yeah.
You don't say no to clients, you say no to relationships, right? You say no to potential partners, business opportunities. It's not something I want to invest into right now. You definitely say no. Yeah.
But it's hard because you have to learn the hard. You're learning on your own as a CEO. You're learning with your own money. But imagine if someone taught you that in school.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not teaching that.
The first 2 years, when we measured NPS, I was the most hated person in the office because I always was giving shit to everyone. I tried to bring the level up so high that people would want to reach to it. And I just was giving shit, and not like with the language like, hey, you are a piece of shit, whatever. But in terms of like, hey, this inbox should be clean. Here's how we designed that. We can do that. And this is what the result we can give that. This is what we promised to our client. Let's get it, right? You promise you can do that. I believe that you can do that. But never saying like, hey, you are in a bad mood, or like, hey, I understand that something in your personal life, that's fine. I'm going to support you. Like I agree with you that the first few years of every business, it's a war. And for you to succeed, you cannot like agree to any mediocrity ever. Look, just like you put the level very high and you just like, no, it's not good.
Yeah. Also, I'll flip it on you. I would say that having a low NPS score from your employees as a leader is a sign of success. Because whoever said that, it's backwards, right? Like, look at an army, right? You go to army, you go to basic training, and you got a guy yelling at you to run 20 miles with bags on your back and calling you everything. Well, guess what? That guy might save your life if you go to war, because now instead of being a soft little potato who gets killed, you're tough. So it's like, you have to know your role, right? Like, a parent's role is not to say yes to their kids. It's to say no, right? Imagine you say yes to your kids all the time. Same thing to your employees, right? So like, but we're not taught that. So it feels awkward. So you get that score and you're like, is something wrong with me, right? Because nobody told you that score meant something was right with you.
Yeah. It's people leadership. Yeah. I've talked with Chris Arlop and from Gong, and he said that there was like, and I agree with him, like people leadership and people management, right? With people management, you can sort of like work with people to build a good relationship. But with the people leadership, sometimes you'd say, no, let's just kind of go and, let's get the shit done, right? Let's bring on conversation to leadership. You've spent some time on LinkedIn, often engaging in discussions about leadership. What qualities do you believe define a great leader?
Different strokes for different folks. Different. That's lots of variabilities in the question, right? What I'm going to lean to at the beginning might not be what I'll say in 10 years, right? Because I think a leader running a Fortune 500 company with responsibilities to shareholders could be completely different to a leader of a bootstrap company, right? From a high level, I like to lead by example, right? So I'm a big person of like, you see those old school wars, we see the king up front with the sword fighting with like, that's how I like doing. So, cause I personally take a sense of pride on being comfortable and able to do anything that I'm willing to ask my teammates to do, right? And a lot of my teammates back in the day when we first started Cloud Test were like, Amir, what I really loved about you is that you were cold calling with us, right? And showing us how to do it, right? Now, those things are important to me now, but I'm also aware of the fact that what got me here won't get me there, and that different qualities, like the qualities to get me to the next level, probably most likely are going to be high EQ, right? Listening, right? Not like I have a strength of being like, you ask me a tough question, I'll give you an answer directly right away, right? Without thinking, right? But that could become a weakness and a different shape, right? Now it could become a liability because now the things just because I can give an answer fast, it might not be the best. So, for me, leading by examples, leading by examples are important, but maybe I'll even give you another one. Maybe a leader that knows that even if he's the owner and controls it, that acts like he's an employee and can get fired and has the same level of performance. I think that's the real sign of a leader, right? And also somebody who's willing and open to replace himself with somebody better.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, how else do you put, because then it's not about you, right? If it's about you, you'll only get so far. If it's about your investors, your buyers, your sellers, and your community, that means that you might not be the best piece on the chessboard. And I feel like that's a big quality that a lot of leaders are missing. You know what I mean? I feel like leaders get attached to the ego of being a CEO and not understanding that it's the responsibility is it's like Steve Jobs got fired from Apple before coming back, right? But they just see what they see. They don't see the days he got fired, right? If he was anybody else who got fired, 99.9% of people got fired would never come back to that company.
Very often on an executive role, there's so much things that you don't want to do. You just do because you have to do it because like you are the best person for the job at this point, right? But I'm sure like everyone, like owners, like they don't want to be CEOs at the first earlier opportunity that they get, right? Like, hey, if I get this thing running without me, that's cool. So that's why I always say to my guys, like, if you don't see me and don't hear from me, then you're perfect at your job. Then you're probably like the best at what you're doing. Because if I'm working with you every day and on top of you, and like it just
There's
kind of we're doing something together, there's a problem here, then I'm trying to fix that problem right now, right? That's why I'm with you. But if I fix that problem, then we won't talk to each other for a month, for example. And that's cool, right? Because like everything is working. I think like just to add to what you were saying, like you said, hey, I can just quickly answer the question. Well, that's honesty, right? If you don't think a lot about it, but you just open what you feel, what you think right off, then it's honesty. And I think like honesty is one of the great qualities of the leader. I think a lot of leaderships right now are not honest because like they're kind of playing something, whatever. But if you're honest with everyone, obviously you need to put some emotional intelligence right now. Sometimes you don't need to tell exactly the whole thing, but you're honest if there's a direct question like, hey, is this or that? You don't sort of like say one thing and then the other thing, right? That's honest.
Where it gets tricky is like is honesty make sense if it puts your business in a bad situation, right?
I think that with honesty, there should be context, because usually honesty should lead to a logical context or conclusion in a way, right? Because like if you think or you have an opinion on something, then that opinion was concluded from incepted from some conclusion.
It gets tricky
right?
though. How many people in America do you think would vote for Trump but would feel uncomfortable saying that publicly because they'd lose business and be scrutinized?
I agree. But sometimes like having an opinion, being honest about something doesn't necessarily mean that you need to express that opinion at all time. I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's like leading by the truth is great, but you got to also be aware of like you have to be dynamic, right? Because
But then if someone is not asking you, like I've read from so Theodore Dreiser is one of my favorite writers, like the financier or financist. Like I'm not sure if you read the book or not, but basically one of his thoughts was that you should always be careful about saying something to someone because you don't know what the value of your saying for that person would be. So it's sort of like sometimes you can say whatever for anyone and being honest about that, but what value you can bring to the other party, right? So if someone is asking, hey, Michael, would you vote for Trump? Then I can say, hey, so my opinion is this is why I think so. But if no one is asking me about that, right, then why do I need to go on Facebook and just shout about it, like, or whatever?
No,
like, no one, right?
And like, but the truth it's a complicated thing because the truth given to somebody can either make their life great or ruin it, right? Like maybe the truth, they find out that they made the wrong career path and they wasted their whole life and they never recover, or you know what I mean? So it becomes tricky when you have to think 10 feet, 10 yards ahead, right? It becomes tricky when you have to think about all the contingencies of what you're saying and how they can impact people, right?
Yeah, but in business, it's easier. Let me give you an example, like this whole recession thing, right? I know for a fact some agencies that have been not doing very good, and they were not right by their people because every time their team asked, like, hey, how we're doing, how we're financial are looking, say like, we're good, everything is fine, whatever. And then they're cutting off people like that one. And they're saying, sorry, we don't have to pay for the payroll. But then you didn't inform them. So they didn't expect that because you were not honest about them. Whereas when we had some hurdles, I went to the team. We said, hey guys, this is how we're looking. These are all the numbers. This is the plan, how we wanted to get up from here to there. Let's do a good work, right? And I just kind of explained. So everyone is like, and said, hey, we appreciate your honesty. We appreciate you sharing all the situation, even if it's tough. Like being honest, sometimes it's tough because you basically show your dirty clothes, right? And you don't want to be sort of like
exposed.
Exposed, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a book called The Great Game of Business. Have you read it?
No.
So I don't remember the specifics because I'm like a high level guy, but it really talks about a company that like went from being XYZ low value in the stock market to like $1 billion company, and how they changed things by being honest and then being transparent and showing the financials of the company. Right. We're a very small company, right? I have a monthly shareholder meeting when I go over the profit and loss and educate my entire team on everything. Because I told them they have stock options, right? But what does that really mean if they don't understand how the value comes from? So I'm educating them, and that's a path I took. However, it has crossed my mind that because the last 12 months of doing this finances, we've been beating forecasts, right? But I've thought about it and I go, well, what is this going to look like the day we're missing forecast? What are they going to think, right? And what I did was I told them on the shareholder meeting, I go, guys, these are all green numbers. They're awesome. I go, please expect red. Right.
Yeah.
And I show them publicly traded companies and I go, look how much you're losing. I tell them, I need to feel comfortable telling you the dirty news that's going to come up. So it's like, it's tricky because you want to be honest, but then it comes to my head. I go, well, what if we're about to raise at a certain valuation? And if I tell them the truth, they might leave and then I lose that valuation. And then them getting that valuation really help them. Well, then it's complicated because you just have to think so far in ahead. I feel like honesty is all that matters now. And I feel like transparency is all that left. And I feel like with the generation, they need that. So I feel like you need to be able to comfortable to tell people the exact truth. Hey, we have 3 months left of runway. This is what happened. I made this bad decision and we f***ed up. I think it's a learning process. And I think people will learn that there's a way to say the truth and that there are times when you might not have to say it, without lying, right? There's a difference in lying, right?
Oh yeah.
So I think it's just these are the skill sets that you don't teach in school that you just learn by example, packaging. Right?
Yeah, presentation packaging. Like again, the same tool you can package differently, right? You can say, hey guys, we have only money for 3 months run rate. That's it. And then if we're done, or you can say, hey guys, this is how much money we have. We're gonna last for 3 months.
But this is our opportunity to get efficient. Yeah,
exactly. And that's a totally different ballgame.
That's a leadership skill, right?
Right.
And then the same thing is this: who will I get that skill from? Right? I will get it from my network of CEOs. I'm not going to call my wife to talk about that. I can call you. I can call my other network, right? So that back to the network you build, right? Because that other CEOs have faced this, and that's the best people to get it from. Hey, man, this is the situation. What do you think I should do? Right? You can probably ask ChatGPT these days because it knows everyone, all the CEOs' decisions.
Yeah. But and again, experience, right? That's why you're not going to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 500 company, being 20 years old, right? There's no way you can handle that. So,
well, you could, there are the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. There's just, I wouldn't model yourself off that probability wise, right?
But not at this point. So let's say Gong as an example, like a fast growing company get from zero to like 250 million, whatever, in like 5 years, high growth, whatever, right? And when I asked guys there, like the CEO, the VP of sales, the CMO, the HR guy, like everyone, did they learn like everything to help Gong to get to that point, or they brought that skill set with them? And like Chris confirmed, like, no, they already had that. So they brought to building Gong with that level of experience, expertise, and commitment. So they knew the roadmap. So it's not like they start designing it. That's why you need to have, and again, like talking about leadership, we as founders, we don't know a lot. And at some point in time, when you're growing fast, you need to have really strong people to share responsibility. So that's why
what we do know, we don't know a lot, but we do know that everything we learn is by loss and pain and losing, right?
Right.
So that's a constant thing. It's just minimizing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's some losses you can recover from, and then some you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like at the end of the day, you take ownership. And this actually brings me to another book that actually talks a lot about leadership, like Jocko Willink, The Seal, the Extreme Ownership book. I look at the ownership from a different standpoint after reading that book. Like, so you always take ownership for everything. Like every leader, like, hey, this is my company, take ownership, full responsibility for everything. This is my team, all the people, I'm take ownership for my family.
Yeah, he's got that big clip where like, someone's giving him bad news. He's like, good. You lost this, great. You lost your biggest client, good. You lost your best employee, good, right? So it's like seeing like that perspective that like things don't happen to you, they happen for you, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's hard.
But then, it's hard. But then taking ownership is different from taking responsibility, because responsibility is different. Like I may take an ownership for Belkins being a founder, but responsibility is shared between every person in the team. So when you show the negative P&L, that's everyone's fault. It's not like, hey,
ultimately it pulls up because you are the most responsible party, right? But you're in a way responsible for everybody. You're like the supervisor.
But you're not. You take ownership for everybody, but you're not responsible. For example, like right now, if we're not performing, it's not my fault. Like the team is not performing. And they like when you go to the point where the team.
Well, I would say that you're the one who built the team. So walk me through this. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I'm Michael. I'm not
building the team. They're not building the team. You're building the leadership. No, but then
But
you're
then
not
you build
necessarily-
leadership. You're always a little bit accountable.
like obviously everyone is accountable in the organization if you work there 100%, right? But sometimes what I feel is like CEOs or owners take the full accountability for the entire thing, and they beat their ass like in working hard all the nights, like fixing the problems. You don't beat all the fixers. Like you need to have people for that, right? And the time when you know that your company is sufficient and operates independently from you, and you help to grow it. So you are not the guy that fixes everything for this to work. You are the guy that works to grow it.
I think what you're saying is that everything in extreme doesn't work and there's an equilibrium, right? Because like I am that guy who thinks everything's my fault at my company. But like what I'm hearing you're saying is that like that mentality is good, but not to an extreme. And that would make sense to me, where like there's always extremes, but you have to kind of not be at that extreme point because all extremes break. And there's like a middle point to everything, right?
Yeah. So after we passed 300 people, like there's no way I can like be accountable for everything. Like 300 people is just crazy. You just like, you don't know anything what's going on. You don't know people that work with you. So the system and the processes is like the frameworks are the only one that works. And then you just look at the framework and say like, okay, this framework failed because of the hiring problem or because of the mishire or because of the tool technology, whatever. And you just kind of fix that. But like, you know, I wouldn't take if we're not...
But you're 20, you're 29, and if I interview you in 10 years, you might say something different. You might have changed. You might now being like, I was the one who made the framework. So like you're dynamically shifting your mindset at all times, and you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not aware of their mindsets, and they're not aware that their mindset might be different than others, right? So like one of the things that I do is I know that as smart as I think I am, but I'm not always right. And that someone's always going to be smarter and better and right. You know what I mean? So it's like, sometimes I have to let go of my ego and just be like, man, there's just no statistical probable way that I know all this stuff. And I got to listen to people. And it's a dynamic, right? Because you have to like, to be a good leader, in my opinion, you have to have the biggest ego in the world and then have the opposite of an ego. I don't know what that word is, where you just, you know, like you have to live in this duality, because either one is going to put you to failure, right? You have to live in that middle space. Right. It's hard to describe that.
Makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Hard to teach that.
Scale. 100%. It's a scale. Sometimes you need to put your ego first. Sometimes you need to put it far back, and just kind of be serving leader.
It's got to move. Like it's got to move in real time, right? Because if it doesn't, it's like a house in a hurricane. It might break, or an earthquake, right?
Yeah. Define for me success. What does success mean to you personally?
Happiness and low stress. That's really it, right? Like we're just a machine. We're humans. We're animals, right? Like we're running around, and I would say I would define success as, you know, feeling accomplished and feeling intent with yourself and feeling like you have a purpose, and that translate to happiness, right? It doesn't necessarily mean money. However, you know, it never hurt anybody. Well, maybe some people who create it too much, but I think happiness and just fulfillment from what you're doing and learning. It's like I now that I'm 40, I feel like a life of learning is a happy life, right? And if that makes sense, because you know,
do you measure it? Can you measure success in your life?
I measure a lot of things. I got my Whoop. I measure my sleep, my recovery, my health. Yeah, you got Whoop. Oh, I got to invite you to my group. I have a group of CEOs that we all torture each other, so I'm going to invite you into it. Yeah, I think I measure it because I think for me, success is trying to push myself to be the best version of myself, knowing that I only owe that to myself and nobody else, if that makes sense. So it's like, you know, like I live in a duality where I have this huge ego where I think I can do anything in the world. And I also realize that I'm nothing. There could be 30,000 billion clones of me in parallel universes happening right now, for all I know, and most likely, right? How I measure happiness might be different than other people, like prestige, like reputation is very important for me. So like, you know, I'd love for, you know, for me, it's just people saying good things about me means a lot to me, right? And it always has. Like I want people to be like, Amir's a serious guy. He's trustworthy. And he gets things done, right? So like, I want to be known for that, right? So I think I just do those things to get that, because that makes me happy. But what might make you happy could be a different story, right? It could be eating McDonald's every day because you feel free because you can eat whatever you want. And if that's your form of happiness, then so be it. You're going to get crushed by other people in a competitive landscape, but Yeah, yeah, I'm old school, right? Like I kind of like saw the heroes of like, for me, it's like wanting to be like Tony Stark, right? Like you want to be like that. I want to be that person, right? I want to be an older guy in good shape, who's still active, who's helping people. So just my vision is, it's almost very, predictable. I would say, I think my vision is predictable in the past. I don't think anymore, right? Like I don't think people really want to become Tony Stark anymore in America. But at least that's for me. It's just me, I think,
When there's time to enjoy life, then,
or I enjoy it every day.
Then, so like, like reaching that success and sort of like your success or that happiness and just grinding and being a machine. That's the way to enjoy life, basically, right?
Well, I said it already. I enjoy and respect the people that are building awesome products and services. I made a marketplace. So I was lucky to build a business that fed into my personal interest. I'm like, dude, I think there's something nice about the fact that I can like message you a question around the world. All my friends are building technology companies. So like, I enjoy every day because I'm lucky enough to have built a business that gives me satisfaction in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I guess my case is fortunate, but I've worked hard to get that, right? I suffered and I sacrificed to get that. It didn't just come very easily. But like, yeah, for me, every day is fun. I have fun every day. I'm wearing a Cartagena tomorrow with my friends. When my buddy's getting married, he's having a big bachelor party. I'm going to go there. That's kind of fun.
Nice.
I got my friend from Miami coming. I have fun every day. I love the people I work with, right? Like they're like Tony Dix, who's my chief revenue officer. I met him through HubSpot partnership. So we were aligned on the same topic. He's really ambitious, really smart guy. Same thing with my CTO, Danny Almada. So like, I've also kind of surrounded myself with people that like, we like the same things. So like every day for me is enjoyable. I love nature. I enjoy the gym. I got a gym downstairs. I go to the gym. So hey, listen, it takes hard work, but like find out what you like and build a life around it. Right. Do
you slow down, ever? Like, going to like 0 speed and just kind of just completely
only when I'm sick.
Only when you're sick. So when you're sick, like just everything goes to
2 weeks ago. I had COVID and I was in bed 2 days. And my girl was like, "This is so weird seeing you." It's like she's like, Amir, when I saw you like in bed, like and not up at 5 a.m, out like running on a mountain. She's like, "I knew you were sick."
Yeah.
I will slow down whenever that happen. I don't want to slow down. No, I want to speed up. I got the whoop. I'm trying to push my health. So yeah, I don't slow down much. I'm sick.
But what about like having a different perspective sometimes on things when you kind of do something that you don't usually do, just to look at the problems that you have out your life from a different angle? That is like just putting yourself in a different situation, like 1 week, no work, whatever. And then going back and say, okay, I'm fresh from what I've done. So now I look at this from the different angle. Have you tried
time
that?
Time and a place, right? I think had I not pivoted CloudTask and CloudTask was a service company and stayed that way, I would be at a place where I can do that more often. Because I pivoted to a marketplace, my platform's been 12 delayed. It's not the right time for me to do that. I did shut down when I went to 3 weeks to Europe this summer, and I was able to because I have Tony, who's my a co-founder at CRO, really operate the business as it should. But it's hard. It's kind of like, listen, if the grass needs to be cut, I'm going to cut the grass, right? Like I have a tough time ignoring the tasks that need to get done because I get pleasure out of doing tasks. So that is a trick question, right? Because if you as a person get pleasure out of working hard, you get pleasure out of being on 24/7, you feel a self sense of worth on it. Well, then that idea of when do I shut off, that's not my happiness. That could be yours or someone else's, right? But it's not mine. I don't want to make $1 billion to go sit on a fucking beach and sip cocktails. I was living in South Beach from 25 to 29. I had a blast. I want to make $1 billion to change lives and change worlds or invest in the genius out of some part of the world who doesn't have the capital, right? Like, so it's like my happiness is just not really about relaxing, I guess.
Who, when, and how engraved this mindset in you? And
I was born in New York. New York is very competitive to begin with, right? So like I was just always competing in sports, competing with my friends. My father was a orphan who came from Israel to Miami and put 3 kids through college. And I just had so much respect for him where he was just working his butt off, never complaining. I think that I was fortunate enough to just observe the world and decide who I wanted to be, right? If that made sense. So yeah, I just I chose that I wanted to be those people that were respected, that have built things that have impacted people's lives. I don't know if it was a person, place, or thing. I think it was just a combination of me taking in my surroundings and making decisions of who I wanted to be. You know, I also have 3 older brothers, and they're very smart and they're very successful. So I'm competing against them, but they're not competing against me. But I was always like my oldest brother is, 55. They're older. They're awesome dudes. Like my brothers are they're like Mr. All of them are like great husbands, perfect fathers, awesome business owners. So like they didn't bring the competition on. I just was like, shit. I was like, these are my older brothers. I was like, I got to be better than them because they should be helping me, and my parents helped me. So that was my mentality.
Yeah. I think in this or that way, they competed with you or with someone else or with your parents, whatever. I worked with a psychiatrist some time ago, and then we discussed the topic of competing with your siblings, and that it's very healthy, because if you don't compete between each other, then it's it's not going to work in terms of your relationship. There's always be something where you spark interest in each other, like when you're like you want to hang out together just because you kind of produce the results of like the motion, like the growth in each other, and it's a health thing. Obviously, there's unhealthy competition in. By the way,
I think the only form of healthy competition is putting your happiness being, if you don't win, you're unhappy. I think all competition's good. If you're okay losing and you're like, I am just giving the best version of myself, right?
Oh yeah, it's about the playing. It's not about the winning or losing. It's about playing at your best self,
and being,
right?
Yeah, and being lucky to do it, right? I'm feeling fortunate to have the opportunity, right?
Yeah. While we still have a few minutes, tell me what you're looking ahead. What are your aspirations for the future?
Aspirations to build a family at this point, which is, I'm 40 years old. I've done a lot. I've had a great time, and I feel like I'll get a lot of excitement from being able to teach my children and travel the world with them. And I would be, just a very happy person when Cloud Task raises potentially at Series A or just bootstraps to a higher level. I've associated helping 1,000 people get remote jobs that are underrepresented job seekers in Latin America with my success. So I just, I really want to help people get new jobs, because I think that people who get remote jobs right now can travel the world and live anywhere and have good lives. So I really would love to achieve my financial goals and my business goals and build my family. That's really it. And beat you in Whoop, because you're going to be in my group chat. So I'm going to try to beat you every day.
I am, honestly...
excuses already. I can't take excuses to the bank, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to do surgery soon, and obviously going to disrupt my Whoop thing like a lot. It's just like you're always going to tell you what happened yesterday, and I'm just going to feeling...
I'm just trying to push you to compete with the best version of yourself. Are you talking yourself out of being the best version of yourself? What happens if I beat you in a Whoop? What happens? You're going to get pissed and you're going to want to beat me. And then what happens? You win because you got healthier.
Yeah, I'm going to need to, you need to meet my managing director. He is the guy that competes with everything. So
is it top G?
Yeah.
What is your definition of a top G?
I think I'm too egoistic to answer this question, just because for me, it's just there is like me, and
that's fine.
I wanted to live the best life possible for me, and and just execute all my projects. So if one moment I'm passionate for the sports, I want to do sports. If I wanted to passionate about whatever, reading, as you said, books on the beach for 1 year and just surfing, that's my life, right? So I just wanted to live the best version of my life and having access to all the resources and opportunities that are out there, right? One of the things, like for me personally, this is my thing. Like if someone tells me that I cannot do that, this is like the red flag.
I got your answer. A top G for you is someone who beats to their own drum and does what they want in a helpful way for society. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Right. It doesn't necessarily need that I want to do all of that. It's just having an opportunity for that. That's very important for me. So
a top G is somebody who's free. Right. Mentally free of any limitations.
Yeah. And obviously for that to happen, I need the resource, I need experience, I need the network, I need all that. So and you cannot build that overnight. So I realized that, and again, I don't agree with Jim. I mentioned that he didn't sacrifice anything. I think that for me personally, I also have a brother, and he's a family guy. He has the most wonderful kid and the most wonderful life, all of that. But I am the Uncle Michael who actually, do the work. So I'm the guy who runs the business, and I'm always busy, and I'm always like on top of things, and I always kind of come up and create some exciting things, etc. Right? And this is the sort of like, that's my platform. That's what I choose, right? And I agree that I cannot do both at this time. I cannot. It's just physically impossible. So that's the sacrifice. So, putting that 20, 25 year sacrifice to achieve that freedom is obviously something that worth to do. So that's kind of a top G for me. So
you're a top G in the making. You are a top G, but I would put you at, you don't even get to first base yet in my eyes, because I have high expectations of you.
All right.
It's never going to be okay for me, Mike. I'm going to say you can always do better. Yeah. But I expect the same from you to me.
Yeah.
I think true friends are people that tell you your worst qualities and tell you like, and push you to be the best version of yourself. And I think a lot of people have lost that, right? Like, I think it's like your real friend is the one who tells you no and why you're fucking up. And people are scared to say that,
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Like I have a few best friends that I can tell anything, whatever. And then what's interesting that they're making me better. Like I have a friend who speaks like 7 languages fluently, like French, Italian. Like I'm not talking about English, Ukrainian, Russian, Polish. Like it's like a basic.
You're not talking about the easy languages.
Like a basic for us. Like he went to Latin group, right? And whenever I'm hanging out with him, I was like, this guy is just like, like reading Socrates in his original language. Like what the fuck I'm doing with so I need to push my Italian every day, like watching this and reading this shit. Not because I'm enjoying that, because I need to push myself to the point where we can be equally like enjoying the spoils of life, like, going to the restaurant in Italy or talking about a nice book or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, I can only hope that the more I get to understand you and your agency, that I could be that person who talks about your weaknesses with the intention of making you the best version of yourself, so that you could, give me some good advice too. So I hope to earn that. I hope to earn that right to talk shit to you out of love, respect. And I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We already agreed that we are on the terms where you can talk shit.
I'll find out. I just have to wait. It's patient. It'll be for you, not for me.
All right. Yeah. I think it's a good close up. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great chatting.
My pleasure.